Well, I thought I'd try something a little bit different today. More of a presentation into some lab work. It always seems like there's two main phases of this path. And one of them, or you say the first phase, is the first phase is it's a conceptual knowing or understanding on what this all even means. And I like to link this to, it's like going to university, where you go to a lecture and then what you learn in that lecture, you take it to the lab and you scrutinize what you learned in the lecture. And so many of us are used to going to a classroom and watching a screen and learning from it that way. And so I thought I would present it this week like this. You know, we all learn differently, and some of us are more visual than others. Some of us can just hear it and inherently understand it. But so we'll try this and see how it goes. So I want to talk about how the ego is constructed, a way to view what it even means. Because once we have that understanding, then we have the knowledge to deconstruct it. It's as if we've come into this world as an ego and a person, and we've constructed our identities, our attributes, everything that we know about ourselves. And this message is about deconstructing that back to the piece of ourself. So we've constructed ourselves into, we could say, discontent or unease, or general word is suffering. And what this does, it deconstructs those identities to come back to rest in the permanence of ourself, which is the direct experience of peace. So there are pieces to the ego, and the main piece, the only piece that's actually here, is I am. And I am is, we put all sorts of names around it. It could be being, awareness, consciousness, self, existence. It is the experience, the one experience that we all experience. All 8 billion of us know for absolute certainty that I exist, and I know that I exist. That is the one experience of the whole, of the one, of the universal mind, of I am. And yet since we know this for absolute certainty, but we can't describe it. That's a pointer. So I am being the reality, the one reality, can't be described, yet it's absolutely know for certain. So that, again, that's a pointer. If you know something, it's not reality. Reality can only be experienced directly as itself. And we have our attributes. So these are all of our identities and attachments, aversions, our conditioning. These are everything we've added to ourselves from a young child, from once we started to turn our attention away from ourselves, because we're all born perfect I am. We're all I am. And what happens over time is we start to listen to our parents and our brothers and sisters at the youngest age, and we start to turn our attention onto what they're describing us as a boy or a girl, or cute, or dimples, or curly hair, or no hair, and we start to turn our attention away from I am onto what we think is cute, what we think is a boy, what we think is curly hair and so on. And in that movement, that's the first movement away from ourselves into what we could say is the early phases of becoming an individual. And these are, as time moves on, our teachers and coaches and clergy and councilmen and they just keep telling us who we are, and we keep adding these identities to ourselves. And with these identities, we start to gain our individual likes and dislikes, where we attach to certain things or we move away from other things. And this just builds these identities over decades and decades and decades. And as we all know, the older we get, it just seems like I am so solid in here that there's no way that I could be infinite consciousness. But that's what this whole message is saying, is if you're willing to look, that is the truth. And attributes can be described, which isn't reality. So anything that can be described isn't the infinite being that we're all after. In the middle of these two is what is known as an ego. The ego is literally like a plus sign that holds I am, you could say, that holds attributes onto I am. So ego it holds, it binds, it bonds attributes to I am. It holds that which is not real onto which is real. So the ego is neither I am nor is it attributes. It's a spurious, formless phantom that sits in between these two. And so this is what we could say is a construct of ego. Ego consists of two pieces, I am, and it's all of its multitude of attributes. Again, the ego is the plus sign that sits between I am and the attributes. It gets in the way of us experiencing reality. A plus sign is neither a thing or an object. It's rather an idea, a belief, or a mental construct. Because, just think of an equation, 1 plus 2. That plus is just an idea that we've come up with. It's not an actual thing. It says when you add 2 to 3, you get 5. The same thing goes as a negative sign or a division sign or any sort of mathematical sign. These are just ideas in our minds. And so is the ego. An ego is nothing more than a belief, I am this mind, and a feeling that I am this body. Is this not your experience? I swear that I am a body that has a mind in here, and that's what I am is. That's what I am. This is what gets scrutinized, this belief and this feeling. The ego has no reality of its own. It is non-existent. It only seems to have some sort of concreteness, right? So this is that feeling, like I swear I'm in here somewhere. I can feel myself. I'm a contraction of energy of some sort. It's hard to not feel that I'm not in here. That's what we're going to scrutinize. The ego is what creates duality. We could say that I am is one feature and all of our attributes are another feature. So two features creates duality. So ego is the source of all the apparent separation in the world that creates the sense of duality, that creates the sense of internal lack, which creates us moving through this world trying to fill that hole of lack. The ego is neither pure I am, nor is it pure attributes. It's a non-pure mixture of both, which is experienced by us as lack or confusion because it doesn't know what it is. It's always, it seems to be like a bed of quicksand in a way. It's always morphing into the next thing it needs to morph into. And on the spiritual path, it will morph into anything it needs to stay in existence. It's now the person who's spiritual. It's now the individual who is getting rid of itself. It's the individual that seeks peace over fear. It just morphs and morphs and morphs into anything and everything that it possibly can to stay in existence. Even the one that's getting rid of itself. I am now the ego who is getting rid of itself. But as we all know, it will play that game, but it will never ever completely rid itself of itself. By scrutinizing the ego, the illusion of duality melts and the experience of oneness becomes more and more present. So we're out here as egos running around in the world being somebody. And back here, this thing called consciousness or being that when somebody points out or asks us, are you conscious or aware? Yeah, but so what? It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't have any value. But the more we scrutinize via the ego, because the ego is the only tool that we have, that we believe we have, when the more the ego scrutinizes itself, the illusion of duality dies down and the realization of non-dual experience comes to our forefront. So this is literally the case. It is something experience, something like this. The more the ego scrutinizes itself to realize who it is, the who it is part becomes more and more prevalent into our life until that's all there is. As the ego dissolves, I am is all that it is experienced, in which all attributes are now contained within I am. So there's I am, and what happens is that the fear at first is that we're going to lose all of our talents and traits and skills that allow us to do life, because that's what it seems like. I'm giving up everything. But what happens is the more you give these up, the more the closer they become. And we're going to run through some of these attributes here so we can see what some of these mean, because some of these attributes are serious to let go of at first. But what happens is in this movement, these attributes become closer to us. They become intimate as ourselves. They're no longer mental concepts that we have added onto ourself. And when the attributes are now contained with I am, that is the experience of non-duality. So let's run through some of these attributes. Again, they can be identities, they can be likes and dislikes, they can be our logic, they can be reasoning, and we're going to see that all of these need to be let go to know who we truly are. So I am plus a man or a woman, right? I'm a man. I've been told I'm a man. Now, what happens when you let that go, that identity as a man or a woman, they come extremely close. So now maning is happening, womaning is happening. Everything that used to be a noun in your mind becomes a verb in your heart. All there is heart. And there's manning or womaning happening within that. I am not a son or a daughter. At first, I'm a son or a daughter. I have to be one of these. But when I let that go, sonning is happening, daughtering is happening. That's just happening. These are intimate experiences. They're no longer concepts. I am such and such age. Well, 39ing is happening. 57 is happening. I don't have these. I'm not these. I am is infinite. It's timeless. It's infinite. It's eternal. There is no age. There is no time. By the way, quantum physicists have proven this. I am Irish, Indian, Colombian, American. No. Irishing is happening. Colombian is happening. I'm a father or a mother. I mean, this is getting pretty serious here, right? Because I have to let go the experience that I'm not a father or a mother. That's pretty intense. We can't deny that. Some of these need to be eased into, tinkered with, starting with some of the easier ones. But to say that I'm not a father, that was a big deal for me until I realized that the fathering is way more intimate, and the experience I have with the relationship with my kids is much more intimate now. I have anxiety. So, or you could add any, it just doesn't have to be an anxiety. It could be this person that has any sort of psychological suffering onto it. I am responsible. Again, another serious one here. These next couple, I think, I came at us pretty hard here. I am not responsible. I am not this concept of responsibility. Responsibility is coming through me. Or not being responsible is coming through me. I am credible. No, I'm not. But credibility is coming through. I don't have integrity. Integrity is happening. So you can see these are, to a person, an individual, like this is everything. Without being responsible or credible or have integrity, the world's not going to take you seriously. You're not going to move up the career ladder, so on and so forth. But when you let those go and you bring them home, these shine through you in their brightest light. Oh, I have a body. This goes back to the feeling I have a body. Bodying is happening. That's for sure. Everything is happening. All the nouns turn into verbs, and so life becomes vibrant. There's awe. There's awe-nessing happening. There's profound-nessing happening. This is what we're all seeking, is just everything in this life, regardless if it appears to be what we would one time call negative or positive. It's just appearing as that. But even in the negative pieces of it, it's the underlying reality of it is self, is I am, and that's vibrant. It's got vitality to it. So the ego deconstructs. So what's one way to look at this? So we have I am. We could say I am efforts itself into an ego. We've effort ourselves. We've turned our attention away from ourselves, and we've become a person via this ego into our attributes, our identities, and so on. What we do here is we turn this attention around. And around is one way to try to describe this. It could be a retraction. It could be a drifting back. These are all just words on what it means to turn our attention from the world, to turn it back onto this thing called ego, because ego is what's standing in the way of pure I am. And when we scrutinize the ego more and more, when we scrutinize it, the ego, we could say, gets smaller and smaller, and I am grows. It's this. There is an experience here happening as this. As you turn your attention and you rest in self, self becomes more and more prevalent in your life, and that the sense of individual dies down. And this is the experience of peace. There has to be the greatest gift at the end of this, because we're literally giving up everything. The ego to us is everything. So to give up everything, what remains has to be everything. Except the ego's everything is limited. It's got boundaries to it. It's finite. Where the I am's everything is literally everything. Because it's the only thing. Until it just, again, collapses into I am experiencing everything in life. But it's not separate from I am anymore. It's not separate from you. It's intimate as you. I'm going to contradict myself here. It's intimate as you, but completely separate from you. And in that is wholeness. And that's the experience of peace, because in the oneness, there aren't two of anything for one to rub against another to create friction, to create resistance of any kind. There's only this. So let's move from the classroom to the lab. Let's start to scrutinize I am.